プラズマプロダクションプレゼンツプラズマバースポッドキャスト。
Hey everyone, Filippo here to another PlasmaVerse episode with the one and only Ryan Connolly. How's it going, Ryan?
It's going good. How about yourself?
Great. I'm going to say that again, feels incredible to me having you here because anyone that knows me knows the fact that starting with the 5D Mark II myself, I literally watch and rewatch every single Film Riot videos from the early days, and it felt incredible, seeing you on every episode, and life changing and having your whole family on all the episodes. It's great to have you here for me, literally from the bottom of my heart.
Awesome, man.
But I want to start.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it.
I really want to start this conversation by asking what was the trigger that let you start the whole Film Riot scenario.
I always wanted to do film for as long as I can remember. It was around my mom says 6, but I always say 8. But now I have a daughter who's really starting to, she started to love the idea of telling her own little stories. And she was about 5 or 6. So I'm like, oh, I guess maybe I was. And it's interesting. I bought her this little camera, this old school handy cam, on an SD card, not tape, which is what I was using. And I just put it in her hands and, go make stuff, make your own movies. And I didn't really teach her any ideas, just see what you do with it at first. And she was already figuring out how to cut scenes inside of cameras. Obviously it's, it's a 6-year-old, but she got immediately this concept of, I'm filming myself talking, I'll cut the camera, I'll put it on my little brother, record, have him talk. She got it right away. So it's like, wow, I guess maybe I was 6. So as far as as long as I can remember, I just wanted to tell stories visually this way. Jurassic Park is when I always talk about that. That was the moment where I was like, oh, a director. I want to be a director very specifically, and I want to give people this gift of the experience I just had in a movie theater. And so then it was just always about that. Went to film school, Full Sail, which was this 1-year tech school, because that's really all I wanted. I wanted to know, where were the buttons? How and why do I push them? I didn't really want somebody to tell me how to craft an experience for an audience. I wanted to hone my voice in my own way, for better or worse. And at the time, now I wouldn't even have gone to film school. At the time, there was no information out there like with Film Riot or with, Andrew and all these different places. Jurassic Park was the one that I always talk about that made me want to be a director, give people that experience inside of a theater. Then I went to film school. I did a 1-year tech school, because that's really all I wanted. I wanted to be in and out and figure out where the buttons were, because at the time there was no information to be found. Things like Film Riot just didn't exist. And even books, it was I'd go to the library trying to find books that would tell me how to be a filmmaker, but even just knowing what book to get was so confusing. I remember even at one time, I thought an A/B switcher was the editor I needed to get, I had no clue. But, so then after film school, I ended up getting a job with Alienware, and I ran their production studio doing talking head videos and, sexy shots of the laptops and the desktops and things like that. And it gave me a lot of space to try things and learn things, and that was fun. But I wanted to be a storyteller, and it's how do you get that? And I was just really frustrated at one point of one, there's really no good information out there, and 2, how do I even do this? I'm in South Florida. I don't know anybody. I never had a mentor, which made things even harder. And then a friend was, confiding in me that they were frustrated that it's they didn't have the money or the resources to go to film school, and there was no information, and that really clicked of man, what if there was something where, I'm not trying to be a film professor, because I was very objective and aware of where I was at the time. I needed a mentor. I needed to learn. But what if there was something that followed somebody who at least had a little bit of knowledge, because there was some stuff at the time. There was a few things that I saw that was well, that's incorrect information. That's not what a shutter is at all, And it was okay, what if there was somebody who actually had a little bit of experience in training? But the whole show was about, which is what we said in the beginning, you want to be a filmmaker, so do I. Let's figure it out. That was the mantra of the show, and it is to this day. And what if that followed my progression of learning and failing and just did it publicly, to have something out there for people to track honestly, not the Instagram filter of it all, where it's like, oh, look at my end result, and I'm such a great filmmaker, where it's like, all right, let me see your project file, chief. You know what I'm saying? And just being really honest about how hard it is, and the successes and failures of it all, while giving knowledge of here's how you can get started right now, and from the PVC days to the Ari Alexa and the full crew days, So that was kind of the idea. Like, I thought we'd get to features way quicker than we did, which we haven't yet, but, getting closer and closer all the time. But the idea is like, what if it went from backyard to feature films? And we're almost 14 years into it now, getting closer and closer to a feature all the time. We're going to make a feature eventually. That's without a doubt. So at some point, we make that feature, for better or worse. Maybe it's great, maybe it's not, but then anyone will be able to track from, okay, here's the feature they made, all the way back to, good God, look how bad this looks in their backyard with PVC pipe. And that was really the idea of it from frame one, to create a community, to put out there honestly what the journey actually is, and take a lot of pull the curtain back on how things are done, because it was so confusing for me when I was young. Like, how do I even start this? And then even throughout my career, doing stuff where friends who make features or whatever, it just looks like it's this one thing, and it's so up here, and I don't even know what is a pitch deck? What is a rip reel? Like, all these things, even deep into my career, was still like, when I first really got a lot of attention, when I put out Ballistic, a short film we did, an action film, I got a lot of attention, and it was so confusing because there's these production companies at me, and I'm like, well, what does this mean? What do they actually want? What should I be saying to them? And then my one friend told me, you need a manager now. I'm like, how do you get a manager? And then I got one, and then I got confused. I thought they actually wanted to produce, not manage. So then I almost got a second manager, and then eventually they were like, managing you. And I'm like, wait, what? It's just so confusing. And there's no good resources for that. So even to this point, as I continue down the path of my career, every time something new comes up that I can bring to the show, we do. Like, we just did one on rip reels. I did one on making a pitch deck. So that's been the idea from frame one, and what we're continuing as we go. And the hope is, once the feature happens, if it's a studio thing, we can convince them to let us continue Film Riot through the process, and really show that process in a different way that's ever been shown before. Because I'm just all about, like, let's show honestly what this really is. Let's show how I'm sweating bullets. Let's show how nervous I am.
Yeah.
Let's show how much doubt I have. Because I think that's really useful to people.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the inception of it, and I guess sort of the philosophy we've had from the beginning to now.
Yeah, and the great thing about this whole scenario that you talk about is the fact that by being, a guy that literally saw episode 1 of Film Riot, I see that there are tons and tons and tons and dozens of movies behind all you guys, because every single episode, your openings, your really fun opening, and everything you do, they literally come from cinema, and from the fact that you watch lots of movies. And by now being a DP and working with different type of crews, I still think about the fact that in the end, it's all about the, the love for cinema and the love for all this, perception that you have if you're not formed into an academy. And it's fun that you also mentioned Full Sails University, because there was a point in my life where I wanted to go to Full Sails University because of you, because you mentioned it in another episode. And I think it was around 2011. I don't remember when, but I was like, no, I'm starting, this filmmaking thing right now. I wanted to be like audio engineer. I wanted to live with music and things, but at that point I was like, no, I'm starting this thing. Let me just do it on the rural side, really simply, and with my hands. And in some sort of ways, thanks God, I continued doing this filmmaking path all by my own on that side. But I literally saw on all your episodes the fact that there were literally dozens of movies from all you guys, because maybe you weren't super skilled on the production side or on other sides, maybe, but everything is cut on the perfect moment, and the framing is whatever it should be. I can see all the director you loved, and I can see you know Spielberg on everything you do, because it's in there. You like the Fablemans, by the way, or better, you love the Fablemans.
Love the
You love
Fablemans,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. And but by the way, it's the practical side that having a crews of fellas that actually watch movies and do great things is in my opinion, the core of Film Riot, and the fact that it worked really well in every single episode. And about that, opening a door right now to the school side. Obviously you made school to tons of filmmakers during the years. Right now, what will be the best? Might call it. I don't know if I call it best. There's not best path, but a path you will suggest to someone that is starting off right now. Just with cheap camera and cheap lens, starting right now. What you will suggest to do?
It's honestly just make things. I don't think there's any one real path. Like, do you go to film school or not? That's a personal decision that you got to make for yourself. You got to look at where are you at, what makes sense to you. Do you just start making short films? Do you have people around you, that know? Like, I have some nieces and nephews and such that are interested in film. Well, they have me that can mentor them and help them and show them things. So do they really need a film school? Probably not. So it just depends on who you are. But the one thing that I think is universal is you just have to make things, and you have to make them all the time.
Hmm.
Consume as much as possible. Watch film. I watched 400 and I think 5 films last year.
Good.
And I did it as like I just want to cram film into my brain, it's very much, studying the language of film from the early silent days to, brand new. And that's what I did. And I spread it up around there, and watching films from all across the world, different ideas, different voices. What are they doing? What does that mean? What does it mean to them? How is it affecting me? Why is it affecting me that way? Watching films, intelligently like that, like trying to break down, like, wow, that moment really connected with me and hit hard. Why? Go back. What did they do? What worked? What happened before to set up that moment? What line of dialogue? What look really helped make this moment land a half hour later? Those sorts of things. There's a ton of great books now. There's so many resources online. Of course, being cautious of who you listen to. There's a lot of people, which if you watch our show and watch anything, whenever I talk about theory or writing or story of any kind, you'll always catch me saying, this is my process. This is how I do it. That doesn't mean this is how you should do it. You should look at how a bunch of people do it. You should create your own process. There's not one way. But you get a lot of people that say, this is the way. And those are the people that you should not listen to. Those are the people you should turn around and run as fast as you can from, because that is not the way. Art is subjective. There's so many ways into thinking about something, to thinking about theme, to conveying your idea, to conveying emotion. There's so many ways. And the idea that there's this one way is something that will stifle an artist's actual voice. And that's when you get the wash, rinse, repeat. It's not factual. So you can be careful about who you listen to. And also, a lot of people, you can go, what's their work? That's why we've been real passionate about putting our work forward. Here's my short films. Do you like them? No? Maybe don't listen to me. You know what I mean?
As simple as that.
Yeah, simple as that. There's technical stuff that we put out that, okay, yeah, that's universal. If you soften a light, it softens the light. That stuff's universal. But when it comes to like telling story and things like that, but more than anything else, it's really just making things, and you consuming those films and reading scripts is incredibly important, and reading any kind of a good book or watching things online that will help give you technical knowledge or whatever, get you thinking differently about the process while making those things. Each time a light switch is going to flip on, each time you make something new, and that's really the only way to do it. I mean, writing screenplays is one of the most recent examples of that for me. Is just the more I write, the more features I write, the more these light switches of understanding pop on, because I talk about it a lot. There's knowing and there's understanding, and those are two very different things. You know what a structure is. You know what you're trying to convey in your story. You know what other films have done. You know what an ending is. You know what a midpoint is. You know what character is. You know what dialogue is. But it's not until you really do it enough to where the light switches flip on and you understand it. Storytelling is literally a dialogue with your audience. And it's like, I knew that before, but it wasn't until I did it enough that light switch of understanding and truly understanding what that was came on. And then I could intelligently use it within my, story developing process. Whereas before, you're dealing with a lot of instinct often when you do these things before you have the understanding, which is great. But by doing it over and over again, you're sharpening, those tools. One thing that I wish I could go back in time and slap myself in the face for is I wish that I was writing screenplays far more often before I really started to, because I had these short films, and there were a few times, from proximity on, every time I put out a short film, someone from Hollywood reached out, but I didn't have any material. I didn't have any scripts waiting. Oh, I have this script and that script and this script. Whereas if I was writing screenplays from film school, just film school on, one a year, I definitely would have at that point had at least one script that was worth showing. Because that's the other part of it. When I say at least one script, but you're talking 10 plus years. So I would have had 10 or 12 scripts, but they all would have sucked. And that's okay, And that's a part of the process of why you need to be doing things as often as possible, because you have to give yourself the room to not be very good, but enjoy the process. I mean, you'll be proud of it and you'll love it because you made this thing. Something didn't exist and now it exists in the world because of you. And that's a beautiful thing. And so you'll be proud of it, but it's not going to be very good at first. But the more you do it, the better it gets, and the better it gets, and the better it gets. And it's like anything. But
right, shoot, edit, and repeat. It's all about that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think everyone thinks that way about most things, but for some reason there's this idea when it comes to art that you're either an artist or you're not. You're either you either can tell story or you can't. No, when you start, you can't. You're going to be terrible, no matter what. You could have all the talent in the world, but you got no skill to wrangle the talent, So it's, you take that talent, you put experience on it, and eventually you're actually able to, wield this thing properly. So that's the main bit of advice I always give. It's like, go to film school or don't. Like, none of those things, figure it out. That's up to you. Either one of those are totally viable. It's just what's right for you personally. Nobody can tell you that but you. But the thing that's universal is just make as much stuff as possible and consume as much education and entertainment and art as possible. And craft, let that sort of inform and build who you are as a filmmaker over time.
Absolutely. I agree. 100% agree with that. And also with the fact that Kurosawa said that you had to write everything that you're doing. So maybe you should have listened to Kurosawa on the early days. I remember one interview with him saying that everything that he does needs to be right down on paper. And there is like this moment caught on camera where it was with his other two. I don't know if there were two screenwriters that were writing for him or if they were all three, writing something. But it was like taking paper and say no, and they were like rewriting things around. And yeah, I was super obsessed with that. Hitchcock too. So two masters. Kurosawa specifically, it's for me even, comes even before than Hitchcock. Hitchcock in my second favorite director of all time, but. Yeah, I completely get what you say. Even for the fact that I am a DP and I don't write anything, but on the other side, I completely what you're saying. And
I really think writing and even reading scripts and dissecting those stories. I think it's important for everyone. Editor, DP, director, actor, obviously writer. But I always say that, like, anyone who asks me, I want to be X, I'm like, you should write. Because even if you're not going to be the one that's actually writing in the end, the process of writing and really digging into a story that way it just informs so much about storytelling, about
Yeah.
intention, about what you're trying to do. I mean, you don't have to, but I think regardless, analyzing and studying screenplays and story in that way is, I think, good for everybody.
Yeah, for sure it is. And just talking about closing this topic, about screenwriting. You write anything on about Film Riot's episodes, or you just come up with the topic and you just, I don't know, go by hand? How's the process behind a Film Riot's episode?
It's mostly written.
Mhm.
Some stuff will be ad lib. If there's ever like question and answer, that's
Mhm.
always off the cuff. That's never written.
Okay.
But most episodes, like visual effects episodes and such,
Mm-hmm.
those are written. Especially nowadays, my VFX artist Ryan Thompson
Mhm.
does 90%, if not more, of the visual effects on the show now.
Mhm.
So he'll write the tutorial for that, and I'll just host it. Um, our color grading episodes are similar. We have a colorist, Benjamin Lemonet, and he writes those episodes, and I just host it. So we're doing more of that, and I want to do a lot more of that. Get a lot more people in there, more talent, more hosts. Benjamin and Ryan both don't want to host, so I do it. But I would love to have different voices in there hosting and split things up and be hearing from different people in their process, not just mine. That's definitely going to happen eventually. It's just we haven't been able to do it just yet, but that's been something I've wanted to do for years. Because like I said before, and I say on the show all the time, it's like I'm just one singular voice. I want, different. There's so much value in hearing from different people,
Yeah.
different walks of life, different ideas about the process, different ideas about story. Like I see story my way, and my way into it is my way, and I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people. I'm not the only one that does it this way. There's a lot of writers that I've heard from that resonated for me, and that's a lot of the stuff that I do I learned from hearing what they do. And so of course it's going to resonate with a lot of people, but it's not going to click with everybody.
Mhm.
So I would love to get more diversity inside of the show, so people are hearing from all those different ideas. But for the most part, yeah, it's scripted. Every now and again I'll go off on an ad lib. In the earlier days it was a little more ad lib than
Yeah.
it is now. But now everything's so fast paced. It takes 3 times as long if there's no script. So we pretty much do it all scripted now.
What was how much Josh was involved back in the days while doing first videos? It all comes from you, or
Yeah, in the beginning it was kind of just like me in my apartment, 45 minutes from
Yeah.
everybody else, because
Oh.
I used to live in Weston, worked in Miami.
Okay.
They were all up in like West Palm Beach, which is I think was like a 45-minute drive.
Mhm.
And I had my now brother-in-law. He helped me out with building the bumper in the beginning, and and I was like, hey, you want to be in it? You want to act? But he wasn't a filmmaker. He was a motion graphics artist. And then my little brother was just, he's a teenager, being a teenager. And I was like, hey, you're pretty funny. You want to be in this, actually? And so that's pretty much that. And then, it's how it always was for me back then. And I mean, to this day, like if you're around, you're probably going to be grabbed and be like, hey, I had my dad in it, I've had my
that
mom
generally
in it.
created. I think that generally created that the whole scenario around Film Riot, that it's incredible. And
Awesome.
that's knowing already that if someone is showing up, it's gonna be that funny, or those characteristics
Yeah.
on the episode. That's great. That's great. And by the way,
Yeah, those were the super fun days where it was just all chaos and like,
let's
yeah,
do this.
let's do
Let's
this.
do
Why
this. Let's
not?
do it. Yeah, yeah.
You know
yeah.
what? Let's go buy a clown costume. I have an idea. That's
Yeah,
which we still do to a point.
Yeah, you're still doing this, but I remember, when I don't know, something like when Red Giant made his first, I don't know, VFX, and everyone get mad on the web, and you were on the first line, doing the first tutorials about that specific thing. Or I remember when Andrew Kramer released like the VFX specs back in the days, and you were the first one, trying those out. Oh yeah, great days. I remember those. I literally spent nights, watching the episode that I missed one after the other, hours. And the fun thing is that whenever I knew DP director, whoever. Everyone comes from Film Riot. Even especially here in Italy, I can tell you that they might not remember everyone's name, but they for sure know the thing. Even Sam Lawyer that was around Andrew's tutorials. Anyone knows? Yeah, that fun guy on Andrew's videos. Yeah, I know him. It's Sam Lawyer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
after besides the Film Riot channel, the whole situation, what was the your, if we might call it, most challenging moments, if you had any challenging moments apart from Film Riot on your like professional life? I'm asking this even because I'm right now with my like production house and the team trying also to create this kind of community things aside, and I feel that it's time by time frustrating when you, I might say, put yourself apart a bit, just to dedicate more time to whatever you're creating on the other side. You have any like challenging moment or moments of frustration apart from the channel on the professional side that you want to share?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's tons. It's nothing but, especially the entertainment industry. It's just such a strange one. And there's not. It's just frustration after frustration. Just emotional abuse after emotional abuse of being passed on over and over again. It can be tough, and you start to question yourself and all that. So there's that side of it for sure. I mean, I've been pitching out in Hollywood with reps for 5 years now. And so that's 5 years of rejection, continuous, nonstop. And it's like, oh, don't be a whiny little baby. But, after time, I was surprised to find out, because I've never been that way. I've been real resilient, and you don't like my stuff? Oh, well, here goes. I'm making another thing. I don't care. You know what I mean? But, when it's your ultimate goal and you've been trying to do this literally your entire life and it's just rejected over and over again, you can't help but in the back of your mind just be like, oh, I'm not good enough. And that starts to weigh in, and that starts to harm the stories you're trying to tell, because you find yourself being like, well, what do they want? Let me do what they want. And for me, that's poison. That's death. So that was the difficulty of like processing that, stomaching that, and not letting that alter you as an artist, or I mean, we're all insecure. I mean, some of us maybe aren't, but I, definitely am. Every artist I know is, every director I know is. It's because it's just hard to fathom that, oh, people are going to like this.
Yeah.
But you got to find stability and confidence in your own work, and just, what, eventually I'm just going to keep chipping at this, or I'll just make it myself if they don't. It's got to be. I've come to find out that you got to work on, instead of it being like, oh, I'm not good enough, shifting it to, they're not seeing what I'm trying to do. They're not understanding what I'm trying to do. They're not seeing the vision here. And that could be your fault that you're not conveying the vision, or it could be that they just don't want to take that risk, or they just don't see what you're trying to do. Yeah. And, altering your thinking to that. On Script Notes recently, they were talking about whatever movie you just make is someone's favorite movie. And I agree with that. I've said it on the show before as well. That's why we used to do a show called Film State, and it was really fun. And the whole idea is, I played a character on Film State. It wasn't what I actually thought or what I was, but it was a character, where I made fun of everything. I played kind of stupid. I couldn't pronounce anybody's name. That was a part of it, So it was like, it was fun. It was a character, but it was also loving movies, but it was also being sarcastic. And after seeing like some stuff from CinemaSins and seeing how that made me, I was like, you know what? I need to stop doing this, because also, we made fun of Twilight and stuff like that. But my real opinion is that every movie has value, especially something like a Twilight, where Twilight's not for me, sure, but that's so many people's favorite film. And that gave so many people relief from, the suck fest that is life 90% of the time, Yeah. And so film is such a gift to people. And just because it wasn't a gift meant for me doesn't mean I need to come out here ripping it to shreds. It just made no sense to me. So I just stopped. And I feel that way. So if I'm pitching you something and you pass on it, everybody in Hollywood is so polite and so kind that I've dealt with so far. So no one's like, hey, this sucks, we don't want it. they're like, oh, this isn't for us, or oh, we have something that shares this DNA, or whatever. So you never really know why they passed. It's always passed very politely. So there is that aspect of it, is finding a way to not get winded, at all, and just keep going. And okay, what's my pathway to just making one on my own? That sort of thing. But there's a lot of stuff through the career as well that can beat you down quite a bit. You shouldn't always trust people. I had to learn along the way. I was raised with a handshake as a contract. If I said yes, I just signed on the dotted line because yes came out of my mouth. You know what I mean? That's how my dad always was. That's how he taught me to be, and that's how I was. And that definitely bit me quite a few times, and it's a lesson that I've had to keep learning over and over again throughout my entire career. We almost got sued one time because we were given permission to shoot at a specific place, and so we shot there, and I was very transparent about what we were going to be shooting there, what we were going to be doing, because I knew what kind of place it was, and I knew what we were shooting, and I wanted to make sure, like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what it's going to look like, this is what it's going to be. Are you sure you're okay with that? Totally okay. Totally fine. Okay. And they wanted me to like train some of their people. That was going to be the trade-off. I was like, okay, great. Comes out. People really dig it. All of a sudden I get a call and it's, hey, you need to take the video down. I'm like, whoa, no, there's sponsors on this. We can't do that. And they thought we were just like what it looked like. A bunch of kids doing stuff in our backyard. But we're on Rev 3, which means we have Rev 3's lawyers, which was also AMC and Fox Entertainment's lawyers. So it's like, I don't think we got friends, pal. So they
is the video still up? Is the video still up?
Oh yeah.
Can you say something about it just to without?
No, I don't.
Just a hint. Just a hint to know. Okay. We will. Here? How many years ago? Way back in the day. Okay.
Many.
I'll be scrolling. I'll be scrolling all the way. Okay.
Yeah. But once we were, lawyers were threatened, then it was like, okay. And now it's like, all right, we're not talking anymore. I'll have my lawyer call you then. And it was just such a silly thing because we, thankfully, I at least had a paper trail because we had emails that were, showed that I was telling the truth, that I was very transparent over and over and over again. I also had somebody else who worked there that was in the room with me that could, back me up and be like, no, he 100% said all of that. It is not on him because the person who gave us access was now lying and saying that, oh, he never told me what it was. I didn't know it was this, blah, blah. And it wasn't even a big deal. That was the other thing where it's like, none of this is that bad. I don't, because, you've seen the show. We don't do anything that bad. Like, it's, even when we do, it's like, it's a joke, so it's like violent, but it's like, come on. But in the end, we had AMC and Fox Entertainment's lawyers. So, it just went away, but it was a huge learning experience for me of like, gotcha. No matter who it is, do not trust people, unfortunately. And a lot of people are completely trustworthy, but the sad fact is you never really know. There's even been people who I worked with that, you bend over backwards for people. You try to help them as much as you can. Not that I'm a perfect person, of course not. But, and then, they turn around and do something that is like, man, if you would have just asked me, I would have done anything for you. I would have helped you in any way. Well, like, why would you do what you just did? You know what I mean? So, and there's people who they have their best interest at heart at all times. Not the community, not you, not the other people involved, just them. And it's hard to tell who those people are sometimes. Like you would think you would always like get a vibe, like, oh, okay, that's you. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's like from the people you would least expect it from. So that's been a hard lesson that I've had to learn over and over again. And I was talking about the being passed on and rejected and how much that can beat you down. Mm-hmm. That factor, when you do trust someone and they turn into something else entirely and do those sorts of things back to not only you but to the team and blah blah. That's the stuff that can give you the biggest dark night of the soul. So it's protecting yourself from those things and not only that, protecting your team from those things. I would say that would be my number one actually, because you're DP. You got your crew and stuff. Like, I'm sure you're the same as me. Your heart's number one goal is protecting those people.
100%.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, that's one of the main things. If you're like me and you have a tendency to trust people, be careful with that. Do it, but also protect yourself. So it's like, trust them with paperwork.
We all know that. By the way, I can't share either things, but I know, perfectly understand the situation. It's kind of fun that you also mentioned the fact that every movie is like someone's favorite, and I think all the time about that, because for me it's Dragonheart from 1996. Is that movie?
Dude, I love that movie.
Man. Draco, that so dragon. It's I have this giant poster of Dragonheart, and everyone on the film side that comes in my house is like, you have movies of Hook, from Spielberg, which is my fiance favorite movies and one of my favorites. And then I have Dragonheart, and people are like, "Why Dragonheart is here?" Because it's my favorite movie, my childhood, and everything is there. What do you mean? Yeah, it's incredible. And the dragon rendering from 1996.
It's still pretty good.
Yeah, still pretty good. Yeah. If you say all the other movies with dragons, we have Dragon, we have like Aragon, something like, but still, 1996. Look at that, incredible. And obviously the voices, and also on the Italian version, we also have incredible voices. The same, I think it's the same one that is dubbing Gandalf on the Lord of the Rings in Italy here. It's incredible. And about that, thinking about cinema, I obviously know the answer, but just share with us your favorite childhood memories or childhood movie memory, if you have some. We were talking about Fablemans. Yeah. If you got something like this.
There's a bunch. There's the Fablemans even brought out memories. Yes, I can totally relate to that. I don't remember what it was, but my dad was watching some kind of action movie. There was a car chase and crash in it, and I was just like, wait. I gathered up all my Hot Wheel cars in the garage with my camera, and I put together this whole little car chase with them. And that was kind of the first time that I started perspective and stuff like that. But the James Bond films, especially like Sean Connery and whatnot, would be on TNT, and my dad would watch those, and he let me sit and watch those with him. And Jurassic Park, like I said, obviously was the biggest impact that was really focused me on, okay, I know specifically what I want to do now. But then there were a lot of other films like The Rocketeer. I made it a tradition to watch on my birthday every single year from the day it came out on VHS to, I don't even know, 10 years later. There was just something about that film that resonated really heavily with me. Just the adventure of it all felt so big. The magic of it, strapping a Rocketeer back and flying. Because it wasn't Superman, right? It wasn't this being this alien that could fly. It was somebody just like me. It was a human, but he's flying, and he's doing these heroic things. And that really clicked real hard with me. And kind of, that sentiment sort of resonates to all my films today. I love to put fantastic elements into everything I do. I love sci-fi, I love horror, I love action. I love to elevate and have that extra little thing, but I love to ground it also in as much reality as possible. These are people that this is happening to, people just like me, and I love that. So it's interesting that was such a thing for me. But Casper, when that came out in the theaters, my dad took me to it for my birthday, and because I always really loved darker things, ghosts, the supernatural and horror and all that stuff. I've always been drawn to that, but my parents were pretty strict, and I wasn't really allowed to see a lot of it. But I knew it existed from posters and trailers, and I was just like, I want that. And I would write my little ghost story and whatnot. So when my dad took me to Casper, I was like, yo, it's ghosts. And it was just such a great thing because, my dad liked movies, but he wasn't, huge into that stuff. So, him taking me to that was such a big ordeal. It was just like me and my dad at the theaters. And then when I was 17, I saw Saving Private Ryan. Oh. And that was probably the most impacted I'd ever been from a film ever. and really taught me like the depths of what film can do.
Man,
And obviously, you know,
what a
that
movie.
was for everyone. That, you know, everybody's jaw was on the ground for that one. And even how he shot it,
The
sort
old
of
handheld
inventing
sequence,
things
you
and-
know, the
Yeah.
old beginning. It's like a punch in the face.
Yeah,
of
the D-Day
nostalgia.
sequence, crazy. Yeah, and it was just so immersive and so honest, and things that were invented for it, but all in service of the story. These stylistic things, but just further immersed you into the moment and the story that he was telling. Um, so really pulled a lot out of that. But there, you know, there's a lot of films too. You know, like Alien, Exorcist, Mission Impossible. Like there's just so many films that have influenced quite a bit over the years. Even now, there's like great films that come out to this day that it's like, oh, that changes my thinking there. It's just film in general. God,
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. We all love it. And about you know films that are releasing right now that released during these years, there are a few movies you want to mention that really brought you back, because that's in my opinion is the thing when you just feel something that you haven't felt for a while watching a movie, and I experienced that with the Fablemans. Obviously, I was like, oh, thank you, Steven, thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a bunch of movies that I loved this year. I'm gonna forget all of them for sure, but I loved The Fablemans. I loved The Whale. I loved Babylon.
Oh, yeah.
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Um, Tar, I really dug. Um, there was just so many great
Yeah.
films this year and last year. You know, Marvel, you know, superhero stuff. That's really not my cup of tea.
Yeah,
most of
not
the time,
really.
it's a little oversaturated for me now, but people love it, so hey, sure. So it's always the underneath that where I find myself like loving film the most. Um, you know, I'd love to get more of the originals. Like, you know, we used to get the Jurassic Parks and the Indiana Jones and the Back to the Futures. Now we're just getting Indiana Jones 5, you know, which,
Yeah.
you know, I'm excited for, sure. But I would love to have that original thing, not
Yeah.
another superhero movie, which great, you know, don't get me wrong. But I would love to, you know, see more space made for those original blockbuster films that will make a kid's, you know, jaw drop onto the floor, something they hadn't seen before. I would love to see more of that. But, you know, again, you got a lot of kids that are absolutely loving these Marvel movies. So
Yeah, yeah, but on the other side, I think it's a thing that is happening on tons of like industries, also on video games, remade, remasters, you know, all these things, and they're not focusing so much, you know, on new stuff. Even I feel the same thing on, you know, Marvel and DC things. Even if I saw Keaton and I'm like, oh my god, I need to watch this, but because of the Batman. But on the other side, I'm mostly not maybe 100% on the Scorsese side when you talk about Marvel movies, but at least I'm also not that much into it because I am not able to watch all those movies because they're actually releasing like one movie each week that correlates with another movie that has been released 3 years. Yeah, it's a weird thing, but yeah,
it's a bit saturated at the moment.
yeah,
for sure.
oversaturated. Also with series and cartoons that relate to the series, you know, too many things.
Yeah.
I address,
But you know, it's all like people always say to me like, yeah, Hollywood's out of ideas. I'm like, no, they're not.
no.
I get sent these from an executive friend. I get sent like this breakdown of everything that's being taken out to the town, like monthly, weekly, whatever it is. And you know, you read these log lines or these synopses, and it's like this sounds incredible. Like this would be so cool. Some stuff is like I've never seen something like that before. Oh my god, that's definitely getting made. And then it doesn't, because you know the audience has told the student that, you know, it's a business, and you know, they're chucking $100 million at something. They need to make sure they're gonna, you know, get your ROI on that, because okay, you put $100 million on it, but then you're doing, you know, 50+ million on marketing, and then it goes to the theaters, and then, you know, the theater takes 50% of that. So whatever the budget was they put out, they've got to double that. So it's got to double the budget just to break even. You know, so it's a risk. So you know, you put out something like Annihilation, the sci-fi led by Natalie Portman, which you would think would have done amazingly well. And it's an incredible film, and nobody showed up for it. So it's like they're not going to make those films again, because it's a business. It's like, what's tracking? What's the audience showing up? Oh, this makes $1 billion over and over again. That's what they're going to
Just make it.
So it's like all of us as audience members, we're telling the studios what to make with our wallets. And if superhero films started falling off and not making the money that they made, you would see them stop making them.
Yeah.
If original films, if every time an original blockbuster film came out, that's what made $1 billion, that's what they did. But it's not. IP is what people show up for. Oh, I know what Scooby-Doo is, so I'll go to theaters for that. So that's what it is. So it's like, what do you expect? That's what they're going to give you. If that's what you're saying you want.
On the other side, I can say thank God for Stranger Things and the Haiti Waves, for bringing back some cool things on that side. But I think that
streamers in general are kind of the savior of storytelling, really, because that's where the mid-range film has gone to survive instead of die like it's doing at the theater. So you're getting more, all the big swings you're seeing mostly on streamers. But it's interesting to see too, like there's been quite a few films that I know of that I'm sure you know of as well, where it was like, they made it with the intention to go to streamers. Actually, Smile was one of them. It was made to be a streaming film. And then, they were like, hey, this is testing really well and we really dig it. It went theatrical. Boogeyman is another one. Lots of horror. Horror still works real well in this space, obviously. So that's interesting too, that there's this this backup plan of like, hey, let's take a swing. It could go to streamers, but if it's testing real well and we, in the end, we're like, hey, this could maybe work, it goes to theaters. So that's really interesting. It's just the landscape just shifts so fast all the time. It's
it's changing.
It's fascinating.
It's changing a lot, and creators just need to deliver wherever they can, and right now it's something like this. And about your whole venture, about personal life, professional life, Film Riot, there was one thing that you didn't expected, from everything that you were doing.
Was there one thing that I didn't really expect over?
I don't know, maybe from I don't know, from the channel or from I don't know, something you should something that you didn't expect it to come from it.
I mean, I did when I started it. I didn't expect to love. I hate saying teaching because it's not really. It's sharing more than teaching. Sharing. Because I don't see myself as a teacher. The whole film professor thing. I see myself as somebody trying to figure it out. Still, just trying to tell stories and sharing my experience and what I think. And I didn't expect to love that as much. I've always loved helping where I could, but having this community where I could come and share and see it actually helped people, and people are actually connecting to that and creating relationships with us, commenting on our stuff, giving feedback. You got a lot of people who aren't giving feedback. They're just being cruel. And you learn to know the difference between, okay, that was feedback. It was a bit harsh. You could probably rope that back, but it was feedback, into, okay, you're not mad at this video. There's something else in your life going on. And this video is your punching bag, So you learn to figure out what the difference is between those. And the feedback that we've gotten on everything, on short films, on just generally on episodes, on ideas of, hey, here's what I think, and I'm putting that, and somebody kicking back a different perspective of, okay, I see what you're saying there, but have you thought of this? Oh my God, you know what? You're right. I did. It's been as much of an education for me as, if not more, than it's been for the people that watch our show. And I didn't expect that. And that's been a really beautiful thing. Just the encouragement and the support that we've gotten from the community. You hear people say that about their communities all the time, but I didn't really expect that sort of thing. Even when I felt, down, and we've always tried to be honest on the show. We did a whole episode when I was feeling pretty low, and hey, these are the things that I've hit, and I want to, convey that to everyone so people don't feel alone, and hey, you can move past this, and hey, me too, and the support we got from that really lifted me up, and I did not expect. In fact, I was, like bracing for people being like, "Oh, shut up, stop whining," that sort of thing. And that's not what we got. We got these really beautiful, encouraging comments,
Right.
and I was like, "Man, that was awesome." And it's been like that throughout, and the gift of drive that our community has given us too, of like, hey, when are you going to make a feature? You absolutely could. And people saying stuff like, dude, if you put up a GoFundMe, I would totally put money towards your feature. And seeing that people believe in us in that way has been such an indescribable gift. And in the heart, because I've been, I was in film school almost 20 years ago now. So just counting film school, not the years before that of making short films and trying to figure it out. You're talking, 20 plus years of beating my head against the wall of trying to do this thing. And, it gets, you can get fatigue. And our community has really been like one of the main factors that has kept me energized, just like this, career Red Bull that I keep pounding. I'm like, no, I can do it. Because they've just been there throughout, just supporting us. And that, I said indescribable already in that, but that's really it. It's like this indescribable thing of like, I can't believe these people are that amazing to give us that gift of support and encouragement. So I would say that one is the one that I didn't expect to be quite what it was the most.
Yeah, and creating a community, it's such a beautiful thing when you are not just, talking to people, but, reaching them out and actually feel like they really know you pretty well. I can feel that 100%. It's also great.
Oh man, it's
yeah. Tell me.
Oh no, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just saying that I literally understand this even because we just had I don't know, it was a box of beer from a followers that was like, I know that you like
cool.
those type of golden ale. And another guy that we're shooting on northern Italy, he like made 2 hours car just to have dinner with us, something like this. And it's cool. Incredible when you also like create this connection and you speak to people, know people. I think it's the best part of making a community, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome, man. I'm so glad you have that. And it's such a cool thing that it's like, because there's also an aspect that's like, wow, what our work has impacted you in that way. And there's so much fulfillment to that. Because, we make stuff and there's fulfillment into what you make. Obviously, I love what I make. Obviously, I've been doing it this long. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. But nothing compares to finding out that something you made actually impacted someone's life. Like, that's what a gift that is. And for someone to tell you about it is like the greatest gift I can imagine. Because, I think some people are like, hey, not to bother you, I just want to tell you blah, blah, blah. I'm like, not to bother me. Like, you just gave me the greatest gift imaginable. What do you mean bother me? You know what I'm saying? But another thing I didn't expect, which is kind of fun, more on the funny side, is doing pitch meetings out in Hollywood, and then if you're talking to was in high school watching Film Riot, and I'm just like, how old am I? You know what I mean? So I was like, never expected that one. It's only happened a couple of times, but the fact that it's just kind of more than anything else, it's just like tells me my age, I suppose.
Yeah, back in the days, was your channel obviously Video Copilot?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Maybe Corridor Digital, or they or no, not even those days. We're talking about 2010 or 9.
2009.
No.
Yeah.
Or
so it's crazy. It's like people that were like, whatever, 16 or like 30 now. It's just like, wait, I'm sorry, what?
Yes,
that's not possible.
I perfectly remember those times because I bought the 5D Mark II. I remember that it was like an assistant to a photographer, and he purchased, I don't even remember which cameras, but he paid something like 50 grand each camera, and then the 5D Mark II came out, and I was like, I won't tell you that is filming exactly like those cameras, but I will just let you see that file, and and he was like, let's buy like 4 5D Mark II. Because
that was the craziest thing when that came out, because you had these cameras that didn't even look remotely as good. Like this camera looks like crappy video, and it's 20 grand.
Yeah.
This is $5,000.
Yeah.
That was the craziest thing. When that came out, that was like, because before that, I had a $15,000 camera that I was using, that I was borrowing. It wasn't mine.
Yeah.
I
Used to borrow
15 grand back then. I was making stuff in my mom's house, with PVC pipes.
Yeah.
And then I would borrow it a lot, and then that ended up not being a thing anymore. And then, I didn't have a camera anymore. So Revision 3 ended up sending us this handy cam. Or straight up home video camera to shoot our filmmaking show on. Because I was like, guys, I don't have a camera. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll send you one. Oh, lifesavers. I'm thinking they're going to send me like that Panasonic that was similar to like the XL2 or an XL2 or something like that. And here I open the box and there's a home video camera in it. I'm like, I don't think you understand that. So that's what we shot the show with. So you can find it by like, where does the show look the absolute worst? That's it. So that was, and so I shot on that for months. Oh, it was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. And then I finally was able to get the camera loan. We did a deal with B&H, and they loaned us a Sony EX1 for a while.
Man.
Before I was able to finally buy the 5D, and that was like the first camera that I owned. I had an XL2 before that, but then it busted, and so I finally got that one. I was like, thank God.
Man, the 5D. I think that literally thousand of filmmakers started with that camera, and also with the 7D. Yeah. I also had the 70
before that
because it was 720 on 60p. 60p just with the 70.
What was the cheaper one?
In Europe was the T2 High.
T2i, that's it.
T2i in America, and here in Italy it was the 5500 or something like that. They changed the brand name, but same camera. I remember that because when I was like watching tutorials around, there wasn't that camera. There was like it's different brand name and stuff. By the way, you mentioned Vision 3. It popped the sound on the video with domain.com. My first website was on domain.com. I had filippocinotti.com was on domain.com back in the days, or domain.net, .com, by the way. Yeah, great days. About those days, let's talk a bit about AI, because I think that people is scared about AI. I'm excited, because it's cutting, meaningless things, and on the other side, I think it's helping. It's not taking part of like this. An artist, DP, I don't know, a designer, What do you think about this whole scenario right now?
I think it's a little bit of both. I'm really excited about it. I use it a ton. I'm pitching a feature right now, and I like to make websites. When I send out features, in the early, when I first started, we was like, and this is mostly how everybody does it, it's just you're emailing PDFs, and I'm like, I'm trying to convey an emotional piece to you, and I'm just emailing a PDF. Like, that feels so wrong. I want to create a presentation where you can feel what I'm trying to do. So I create websites, and I like to create mock posters and obviously rip reels, and I like to build out the website to be very, very visual, and I like to build my treatments to be very, very visual, and obviously director pitch decks to be very visual. And Midjourney has been incredible for that. This latest one specifically is like, the website is 100% AI art, and I don't have any money to be paying artists for original artwork. I wish I did. It would be way better because I could be way more specific, but I don't. So this is an option for me, to be able to do this and convey the idea but it's not public, and it's perfect for that. We've also done some stuff like with VFX, creating backgrounds, which is really cool. I've used it as just inspiration, like I'm writing and I'm trying to figure out something, and I'll just put stuff in and let visuals hit me, and then go down a rabbit hole of different ideas, and that's been incredibly useful. One of the product or a sales video, I think it was. We did a sales video recently, and we used AI voice for it. That was really cool. But you have AI in so much stuff. Like, we just did an episode all about the best AI tools, and a lot of them people don't even think about. Like RotoBrush, that's AI. remix on Premiere. That's AI.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
just pitching right now because we have so many things available right now, like ChatGPT.
yeah,
ChatGPT
yeah,
is there privately since 2017, but right now
yeah,
it's available for everyone, and it's a new thing. But
totally.
we have Face ID, we got Roomba, that is a robot that is cleaning our house. We got
Yeah,
everything around it's AI, but people is like waking up,
yeah.
and I'm like,
Yeah, and
hey,
the genie's out of the bottle. Like you got a lot of people doing the whole no AI art and things like that. And it's like that's not
yeah,
a thing. That's
nah,
not gonna
absolutely
happen.
not, nah.
So instead, it's got to be a part of, And I don't have the answers, and I don't feel like the right person to even say it. But there's got to be, ethics in this thing. There's got to
Mhm.
be. I think laws need to be created. Obviously, I mean, copyright law is a very confusing one when it comes to
Mhm.
that. That's like, wait a minute, who owns this? It's pulling from
Yeah.
other. And I get artists, especially artists, qualms about it. But it's pulling from people's art who did not agree to this. So that I think there should be things like I should if I was an artist, a designer of any kind, I should have the option to opt out of that. That all my work cannot be sampled for that. That should be a right that I have.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I'd personally be totally fine with that. I'd be like, go for it. I love it. Do it. It's not me. But I get why people would, and I think that should be the thing. So I think that it's a very confusing, brand new thing that needs to be figured out and not run rampant. And there's a lot of scary stuff to it too. Using AI to completely 100% replicate someone's likeness and voice. Well, we can very quickly see why that's scary. All
Oh
the
yeah.
misinformation that's come out in the past few years and how crazy things and how much it's divided. Like, so it's, I was like, could this be used to straight up start a war? Because it looks like the president said this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really, really scary aspects to it, even beyond, what we do for a career. You have that deal that they did with that movie, the Fall or the Tower. I can't remember what it's called, but they originally it was rated R because they said fuck a lot in the movie,
Okay.
and they used AI to map
Yeah.
the actor's face, figure out all their intricacies of how they spoke, and then to completely redo. And you could not tell. I saw the movie before that article came out. I had no idea,
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it comes out, and even them showing it to you back to back, you're like, I would have no idea. That's insane.
Yeah.
And for me, that's like, dude, that is awesome. I love that so much because I was talking to a buddy of mine a long, long time ago, and he was telling me because I was trying to fix something in an edit with something I made, and he's like, yo, in this $15 million feature, there was this huge story point that we needed to correct and fix some stuff. So we're just looking at this actor in the back of the head of this actor while we do new ADR, and that's what you do. You're just not looking at them as you put them. Now you can just look at them,
Yeah.
and that's wild and a really cool tool. But that exact same tool can also be scary in the wrong hands. So I think all of it's really cool, and I'm excited by all of it. But I understand the people that are either upset by it or wary of it or whatever it is. And more than anything else, what I would love to see when my fingers are crossed is like as soon as possible, like some kind of committee created to make sure there's ethics and it's all in and
Yeah.
out and it's not misused to. I mean, it's going to be misused. There's no stopping that, right?
Yeah.
But to the greatest extent we could possibly, stop that misuse would be wonderful. So I see both sides of it, and but for me, like you, I'm really excited about it, and I've been using it quite a bit, and it's really, really helped, especially on the behind the scenes, the pitch side and
Yeah.
everything. It's been quite the godsend. Chat GTP is terrifying. That
Terrifying.
one's the one that's the
It
scariest.
is. It is. It is. But in the end, it's controlled by human. So being evil or not depends all on the human. I listened to this pitch by, I don't know when it was, but it was like, for a computer and AI, maybe opening a door, it's really simple. But on the other side, if you just put a chair in front of the door, it's like impossible to them if they haven't a code for like moving that door. We are, as human, we can do tons of things, not in a really exceptional way, and AI system computers can do specific things on a really verticalized way. So in my opinion, it's great for things like, I don't know, boring stuff that you want to do for, I don't know, software, or I don't know, maybe cleaning my voice after this podcast. I have an AI tool that will do this. So thanks to that, and also other meaningful things. It's great, but on the other side, you need an input. I'll tell you that. I'm also writing a blog article that will be one of my, I might tell, first YouTube videos, and I'm going really tech into talking about HDR and the fact that on the color grading side, because I'm also working as a colorist, on the color grading side, it's kind of a thing that we have 9 years now all around on TVs and stuff, but still, we have HDR support on YouTube, we have support on Netflix and stuff, obviously, but on the client side, if you're working for commercials and things that are not like documentaries or features, it's not a request that much. So all the professionals that I know are like, yeah, I'm not exporting that much in HDR, but it's the brand new thing, for everyone. And about that, I was looking for really high tech things, and I asked ChatGPT, and he just he she whatever it is, give me whatever I ask it specifically, because I know the basics, I know whatever I want to talk about. So I was like, just write me down all the color space and codecs and gamma and things that I need for Netflix delivery, Prime Video deliveries, Dolby Vision delivery. Just made a list. 2 seconds, and I got it. And copy paste, obviously modify it because it's a damn computer, and I have it because it's boring. I don't want to Google around all this perfect specific text, but in the end, there is a man or a woman behind the screen that tells him what to do. So that's the core and the fundamental. Even if I was like a painter, I might need, I don't know, a background and then adjust it a bit. I don't know. Maybe I will ask Midjourney a hand and maybe fix it a bit. I don't know. Maybe there is a really subtle line in this, a really tight line in this, but on the other end, I can say that it's usable. On the other end, there might be an artist or someone,
Well, I mean, it's just going out and it's, creating data sets for everything that's out on the internet. So it's informing us based off of what it's machine learning for what's out there. And there's lots of misinformation out there, right? So it's not a critical thinker, so it's now feeding us what it believes to be true off of its data set based off of what it's pulling from around the internet. And that's a little bit scary because we know the internet. But, I think there's, pros and cons to everything. Social media has pros and, major cons. To society as a whole, to young people. But it has major pros as well. Empathy, making the world smaller, seeing other walks of life, right in front of you. So it's got really great things to it as well. So my whole thing is I'm excited. I love it all. I think it's all really cool, but I'm also a little nervous about it too. But I think as long as, if we can do that process of looking at that, the pros and the cons, and finding a way to protect everything from it getting too out of hand, which, given the history of how everything goes, that's unlikely. So I do see both aspects of it, of how it could be really cool and how it could be really dangerous. But I'm hopeful. I'm an optimist, so I'm always like, it'll.
We'll figure it out. We'll make something, whatever.
I think so. There'll definitely be trips and falls. There'll definitely be misuses. There'll definitely be things that I was like, wow, man, wish that genie never came out of the bottle, as it always happens across history with every new thing. But I think it'll be all right in the end.
Yeah, even if we got something, if we will be in something like Mad Max, we saw the movie, we will figure it out.
Hey, for me, more than anything else, it's like, AI is not coming, it's here. And regardless of what, I'm a writer as well. So, I definitely have concerns about that. Like, hey, man, is my writing career over before it really fully kicks off? But for me, with all of those things, editing, writing, VFX, the artistry of any kind, it's like, you adapt or die. And that's always been the case, from editing analog to editing digital, to shooting analog to shooting digital. All these like big jumps, these big differences. It's adapt or die. Are you going to be the person sitting on your lawn, get off my lawn, new technology? Or are you going to be like, okay, what's this? I mean, Unreal Engine, what's going on with Unreal Engine? And the, virtual production and all that stuff. You either learn those things and you adapt to them and, okay, how can I take this new tool and, weave it into my own process, or you just get left behind. Like those are the two options. Regardless if you like AI or if you don't like AI, it's clearly becoming a massive. I mean, even Hollywood now has these AI bits of software that is starting to apparently help them make decisions on what movies to make off of what the AI is tracking on, like, okay, who would be in the film, what is this film, what sort of genre, what market, all these different parameters. And then it's tracking what that film would likely do and where it should go, streaming or theatrical. So it's here. It's fully here.
Everything is AI. Even Netflix. What do you want to see tonight? I don't know. Yeah,
totally.
Let's
Not
see
only
that.
But what poster should I show you versus should I show me? Like every film has several posters that I can show you, and even if I switch between mine and my wife's accounts, we get different posters for the same film. So AI is even deciding on how to convince me to click play on something. So it's everywhere.
Yeah, I just look at the fact that I don't know. I'm here watching, scrolling and things, and I don't know what to see. And he suggests me something, and I'm like, "Oh my god, you know me really well." But by the
you AI, you.
Oh, you. But by the way,
you clever.
exactly. Ryan, just to wrap up the episode, I actually want to talk a bit about this, about how we'll look in 10 years from now, the filmmaking world and productions. We are a lot inside Unreal Engine right now, and it's really, really easy right now, getting our hands on something like Unreal Engine and do something with Unreal Engine. I still remember maybe 3 years from now, like making even something with Unreal Engine was a bit of a pain because you need to have something to key out your foreground and to track the camera. Now we have suits like Rococo, El Rococo suit, and everything like the your phone. You can feel yourself with your phone, and exactly. So, what are your thoughts like on 10 years from now on filmmaking production, specifically filmmaking production and not maybe Hollywood cinema, because we're talking about this revolution, the fact that it's really easy right now to get easier than 10 years ago from now 10 years from now 10 years ago. What are your thoughts?
I think the lines have blurred so much between Hollywood and independent because of technology. The democratization of everything has really, I mean, even down to when we started Film Riot, getting just good music to put on the episode just behind me talking, we had to use, it was called APM Music, and we only had access to it because Revision 3 had this umbrella license to APM Music. And it was like, I think $20,000 a year to use or something crazy. I think it might have been more than that. It was prohibitively expensive for anybody to use. So everybody else had horrible music or none on their videos, but we had great music. Thanks.
Your intro was also part of that library. The intro.
No, that was I got that before I had access to that library. I had these. It was actually from an actual band, Hello Control, and I hit them up and I was like, I kind of love this. Could I use this? And they allowed it. You can find the music video and everything. I think we have the link to their their channel.
That's interesting.
In the notes of like every episode ever.
Oh, okay.
But even like I said, just even getting music for stuff back then was so hard, and a lot of visual effects that we did was very much bubblegum and popsicle sticks because it was either spend way more money than we had for different tools and like it's so confusing to try to figure those things out and actually make, and then the system that you would need to even run the simplest render of something 3D it was just so prohibitively expensive and confusing.
God.
Now you have every tutorial you could possibly ever want for anything you would ever want to learn. And most computers could handle at least, the smaller end of things. You could shoot with your, like I said, we had to use $15,000 camera to get something that looked decent. Now you can use your iPhone in your pocket and get the same visuals, not as, shallow of depth of field as we were getting, but the same visuals, if not better, as we were doing then with your phone, or spend $2,000 and get a great camera, or spend $5,000 and get an unbelievably good camera. It's just absolutely bonkers. And then, inside of, going even back from that, when I was really young, people don't want to spend a ton of time making the things you want to do. They think it sounds really cool until they come and they make it with you, and they're like, I'm bored, and they don't want to do it anymore. And I had a lot of friends that were willing to do stuff with me, which was awesome, but they'd get bored and they'd goof off, and it would be really hard to do, and no one would shut up. And then it's like, I'm just trying to make my thing, Now you could make a whole thing by yourself in your bedroom with Unreal Engine. And not only that, you could voice every character because we have AI voices. You can shift your voice and not only voice them all, but voice them all how you want in your head. You know what I mean? Like, I have these stories that it's like, it's just going to be stupid if I do it. It has to be comedy because this needs to be an adult and we're all kids. And I sound like a kid, blah, blah. Now I can perform every character, swap the voice to the voice that I want that's in my head, pop that on to an Unreal character, which I can get from MetaHumans, and have this unbelievable looking character, not even like shitty, just like great. Do it motion capture, do face capture, all in my, and build those skills. But not only that, there's been such removal with those barriers of technology to be able to do those things that the focus can start being heavily upon the story and on the experience you're trying to give to your audience. So my optimistic view of it all is I think you're going to start seeing people at a much younger age really tackling the idea of story, the idea of experience for your audience, the idea of connecting and conveying, because those things are so easy. And not only that, it's so widespread. It's like, I'm not super impressed by your cool VFX anymore because everybody does them. You know what I mean? In the beginning, everybody was like, oh my God, you cloned yourself? How'd you do that? Now it's like, bro, my 6-year-old just did that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like a totally different thing where you're not, people aren't as impressed by the bells and whistles. They're impressed by how connected to the character they are. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And, if I had this stuff back then, I would have been able to explore those stories that I wanted to explore that I couldn't explore till, much, much older, when I had actual actors, stuff that's, again, prohibitively expensive. You don't have those resources and whatnot when you're, a young person interested in story. So, I mean, even to the Hollywood level, people just know how all this stuff is made now. Oh, that's an LED wall. You know what I'm saying? So we see all this spectacle. We see, all the Marvel and the Star Wars movies, the Avatars, all of these films, even back to the Jurassic Park, from there till now, to the point to where literally everything's possible. Like, when was the last time you saw a film and you're like, whoa, how in the world did they do that? I can't remember. I'm always like, oh, they probably did it like this. You know what I'm saying? And again, even my wife does. She's not in the film. She doesn't. She's not in filmmaking at all. And she's like, oh, it's probably this. Because audiences are so smart now because of the amount of behind the scenes that, film, studios have put out with everything explaining. I mean, look when Mandalorian came out, the big story was the LED wall explaining the LED wall. And then shows like ours and all the other ones like it. So the thing that's, I think most impressive now is when you connect with me on, such a great degree. So I think that's going to start taking center stage a lot more, which has me excited because that's what it used to be, right? And then we got technology, and then we got spectacle, and people started being like, whoa, explosions, and whoa, this visual effect. And of course you had the movies like Jurassic Park, Lord of the Rings, all those films that did both unbelievably well. And that's been across time. But I think I hope my optimism leads me to believe that we're gonna start leaning back much more heavily toward character and story, with those things just being the supporting factor of that. And I'm really just excited to see, if young people have those tools to explore those ideas at a much younger, age than you ever were before. Well, then that means you're 10 years ahead of where any of the rest of us were. So what does that mean for you as a filmmaker at 30? You know what I mean? Like, what unbelievable ideas are going to be rolling around your head at just 30 years old? And you got another 30, 40 years of, storytelling after that. Like, what are we going to see from these people that had so much more time to really dive in and try things and learn things and wrap their mind around how to do those things? Like, what are we going to see from those filmmakers that are, coming, that aren't here yet? So I just get really excited about it personally. What gifts are we going to get from these artists?
Yeah. On the other hand, I think that tons of filmmakers will new filmmakers will relate with I don't know, maybe cinema from the good old days, because I can say that maybe 10 years ago there still was this thing like let's watch Seven Samurai or Rope, Birds, name it. Yeah. And I had a friend like, that's old. That's old. That haven't aged well. But right now, that you're not, you're not surprised anymore because you're seeing Avatar, you're seeing whatever it's coming out. You're relating a lot more with the story and with the pacing, with everything that was there. It's kind of weird to me because it has always been in this way, but I see right now, guys that, I don't know, 50, 60, 18, and they're hating maybe that are like, this movie makes sense, and I don't care if we don't have VFX explosion, because it's so dense, it's so complete in its simplicity, and that it's kind of incredible. And I'm fighting, with people that around me, I think, like, just see one Kurosawa movie because I love Kurosawa, and everyone's like, no, so slow, so boring. It's not like that, please. But by the way, I can get it.
Yeah, good story is good story, regardless of when. I just watched The Kid, Charlie Chaplin's The Kid, with my 7-year-old and my 5-year-old, and they were locked the whole time. They loved it. They were laughing. They loved it. I think that's also there's not enough education for classic film, so a lot of people get to the point and they just have preconceived ideas of what classic film is. And they don't have the palate for it because they weren't given the palate for it. But if all you watch was classic film and then you were given the chaos of what a lot of films are now, you might be like, whoa, what's going on? So I think that's an aspect of it too, is like people need to be exposed to it more.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So I normally wrap up the episode saying whatever you want to bring our audience to. Obviously, everyone here, I think, knows Film Riot, knows you. So where should we send our audience right now? Do you have right now?
Just filmriot.com. We'll do it. I think we have everything there. We have a podcast, which is on hold for now, but we do specials every now and again. I got one coming out tomorrow, actually, with Scott Glassgold. But we have all our episodes there, and how to connect with us. So you'll find it.
Thanks, Ryan, and really heartwarming to have you here. You are such a nice person, and it's been great, talking to you. Hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.
Thanks again.
Thanks. Appreciate it. It was great. Appreciate you having me on.
プラズマバースポッドキャスト